China-America trade war escalating. The China-America trade war is an ongoing economic conflict between the People's Republic of China and the United States. It's been escalating since 2018. Most of this dubious trade war is characterized by tariffs, which are additional taxes on imports, in addition to blacklisting companies. There are more than 400 Chinese companies on America's blacklist, meaning they're not allowed to do business in the USA, and American businesses are banned from conducting business with them. This blacklist is one of the tools used by the US to restrict trade. These corporations span everything from telecommunications to computing, aviation, biotechnology, nuclear energy, and more. In 2018, the U.S. imposed tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods. Beijing did not waste any time and retaliated with similar punitive measures. According to Moody's Investors Service, American businesses are bearing most of the cost burden from the trade war. Experts also emphasize that at the end of the day, the trade war made the cost of living for the average consumer higher. So why on earth is America engaged in a trade war with China? And who is winning? Watch till the end to get the answers. Let's go. Chinese exports to America gained 27.5% over 2021 to reach $577 billion, despite the still standing tariff hikes by Biden's predecessor, Donald Trump, on many goods. Whereas Chinese imports of American goods rose 33.1% to $180 billion. American leaders and Congress members have advocated tariffs to eliminate the U.S. trade deficit and promote domestic manufacturing, saying the country was being ripped off by its trading partners. Nevertheless, nearly all economists who responded to surveys conducted by the Associated Press and Reuters said the current tariffs are causing more harm than good to the American economy. The whole tariffs and blacklisting fiasco began in January 2018 when Donald Trump began setting tariffs and other trade barriers on China with the goal of forcing it to make changes to what the U.S. says are unfair trade practices and intellectual property theft. The escalating trade war led both sides in February 2020 to sign Phase 1 of the Economic and Trade Agreement. China agreed to increase purchases of certain U.S. goods and services by a combined $200 billion for the two-year period from January 1, 2020 through December 31, 2021. The agreement expired in December 2021. Many analysts expect Phase 2 of the agreement. However, there are no signs of such deals. According to data compiled by the think tank Peterson Institute for International Economics, before the trade war, U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods were an average 3.1% in early 2018, while China's tariffs on American goods were at 8%. Both sides currently impose about 20% tariffs on each other. Tariffs on China currently remain in place under the Biden administration and account for $73 billion of the $81 billion in tariff revenues. This means that both the U.S. and Chinese governments are generating billions of dollars from the tariffs, while businesses and consumers are paying more for goods and products. On January 28, 2022, the U.S. Federal Communications Commission, FCC, revoked authorization for China Unicom from operating in the U.S. They cited national security as an issue. FCC Chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel said, "There has been mounting evidence, and with it a growing concern, that Chinese state-owned carriers pose a real threat to the security of our telecommunications networks." America is notoriously known for practicing anti-globalization, trade politicization, and weaponization to achieve certain levels of protectionism from rising competitive non-American corporations, and also in trade coercion tactics to achieve geopolitical goals around the globe. Such behavior by the American political elites is condoned not just by foreign experts and analysts, but also by American ones. Many American economists generally agree that free trade increases the level of economic output and income, and conversely, the trade barriers reduce economic output and income. Historical evidence shows that tariffs raise prices and reduce available quantities of goods and services for U.S. businesses and consumers, which results in lower income, reduced employment, and lower economic output. According to former Treasury Secretary Jacob Lew, eliminating tariffs imposed on goods during the worst of the trade war will help ease inflation in the U.S. The America First logic is not just hurting America, it's also having a very negative impact on globalization. It simply shuts the door in the face of thousands of rising stars from numerous nations that want to enter the U.S. economy. Moreover, it's turning America into a babysitter with a machine gun, dedicating to securing U.S. corporations' global reach and dominance. American corporate giants may seem very powerful and undisputed champions, but what they are failing to realize is that they are nothing without the U.S. government's anti-globalization, trade politicization, and weaponization policies, which sooner or later will result in an isolated America. The U.S. has even been strong-arming key companies to build factories in the USA or in friendly countries. Recently, Intel announced a new plant in Ohio not long after the U.S. had encouraged it from investing in one in China. Likewise, it strong-armed Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Co. to build a plant in Arizona as well as one in Japan. It's abundantly clear that semiconductors are no longer a globally free enterprise, but a key element in geopolitics. Indeed, semiconductors are increasingly becoming one of America's favorite weapons in blackmailing countries like China, Russia, and corporations alike. Over the past few years, China has framed itself as an advocate and defender of a multilateral trading system against protectionism, and in turn sought to accelerate its trade agreements as a means to hedge against Washington's attempt to block its development. America's politicization of the global semiconductor market and supply chain forced Beijing to urgently speed the development of its own industry and capabilities. According to experts, China has been excelling in expanding and advancing its semiconductor industry. American protectionism and obsession with maintaining unilateral global hegemony already caused China and Russia to become solid partners in everything. There's growing collaboration between Russia and China in strategic technologies in a number of areas, including aviation, military, and space, as a result of the challenge posed by the U.S. Experts predict that the two countries are well on the way to adding semiconductors to the collaboration list. China's aim was focused on securing its own capabilities and supplies for its own development. Nevertheless, the American policy of politicization and weaponization of essential technological components has led it to expand its goals and become more involved in assisting other countries in the same struggle too. This is making it more difficult for the U.S. to single out China and sustain a global grip over the semiconductor and other technological component industries. At the end of 2020, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership was signed. The deal constitutes the largest free trade agreement in history, spanning 30% of the world's GDP and nearly one-third of the world's population. The deal brings China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and the Association of Southeast Asian Nations into one bloc, where members enjoy 90% of goods tariff-free. This new trade agreement gives Beijing huge advantages in its economic competition with America. The more good news for China is that the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership is still growing. Bangladesh is looking to join, and other economies in the regional proximity, such as Pakistan and Sri Lanka, and even countries in East Africa, are expected to join. Even some of America's closest allies, including Australia and Japan, are deepening their economic integration with China, which is also working on joining the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. Ironically, it was Obama's administration that originally created the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, precisely with the goal of countering China. However, the Trump administration later walked away from it. Now the Biden administration is proposing something called the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, which seems to have little to do with actual trade and is more designed as an attempt by the U.S. to set the economic rules of a region with which it's not even willing to integrate itself. For most countries, this is a non-starter. The ultimate results of the Phase 1 trade between China and America and the ongoing trade war have significantly hurt the American and global economy without solving the underlying economic concerns that the trade war was meant to resolve. The American trade war with China and the rest of the world, as it seems, is useless, harmful, and unnecessary. The main reason it exists are the fear tactics used during elections by both the Republicans and Democrats, which are based on blaming the whole world for their failures at home. Would you like to learn more about what influences the world's economies and global financial flows? Then click on one of the videos that shows up on the left or go to our channel to find other interesting topics, and I will see you next time.